Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today, we are covering support Blitzcrank.
Fired up and ready to serve.
Blitzcrank is a champion with a game-changing skill shot that can completely swing the game. He has great survivability from his mana shield passive and a great AoE silence from his ultimate. He then has multiple disruption skills, which makes him great against something like a Katarina, since he can stop or channel ultimate with many different skills. He's then very dangerous under his own turret, because one successful rocket grab led into a power fist under a tower will most likely cost you your life. He's then a very strong solo queue support. He is a support champion that can actually help carry the game. He's not something that just sits in lane healing like a Soraka. Unlike Soraka though, he does have no lane sustain and is pretty susceptible to poke. He's then also very mana hungry early on, as his rocket grab does take a very large chunk of your mana. Then of course with that rocket grab as well, he is rather skill shot dependent. Lastly, he does require high decision making, which is part of the reason he's so hard to master. You don't want to pull a target just because you can. Pulling in something like a Skarner can be a very bad decision. Then of course there will be champions on your team that don't really want something pulled into them. For our Masteries, we have two different options, and the first one here is 18 Cunning and 12 Resolve, taking Thunderlord's Decree as our keystone mastery. If you are playing with an aggressive AD carry and you are trying to get kills in that bottom lane whenever you can, Thunderlords is great for adding some extra damage so you can get those kills. If however you do wish to be a tankier target and more of a frontline presence, then you can go for 12 Cunning and 18 Resolve, taking Bond of Stone instead. I personally go for Thunderlords most of the time, but if we do lack a very tanky champion, then I will fill the role by going for Bond of Stone. For my rune page, I take 9 magic penetration reds, 9 armor yellows, 9 magic resist blues, and 3 ability power quints or 3 movement speed quints. If you do have a strong AD carry that can hold their own in either a 1v1 or 1v2 lane and you can go roaming, then I would take that movement speed. But then of course, if you are spending more time in the bottom lane trying to get some kills with your grabs, then taking the ability power will help, so you'll deal some extra burst damage. If you want to be a full-on tank, you could of course switch those yellows to health and then get armor, reds, and quints, but usually I don't find this completely necessary and I do prefer having some sort of damage in my runes. For our summoners, we start by taking Flash. Blitz doesn't have a built-in escape and it can save him in a lot of different situations. It's then also great to use offensively to catch people off guard and land a rocket grab. For our second summoner spell, Exhaust is a great option. It's really strong in the late game to stop large portions of damage and could also be used to win 2v2 engagements in that bottom lane. Ignite is another great option for your second summoner spell if you're looking for some added kill pressure in the lane. Blitz does have some decent early game damage, and when you combine it with the damage from your AD carry and an Ignite, he can really get that lane snowballing. So now let's kick off your abilities by looking at your passive, Mana Barrier. So when Blitz receives damage which brings him down below 20% of his maximum health, he shields himself for 50% of his current mana for up to 10 seconds. So that's obviously very straightforward and easy to understand, and it's part of the reason we go for a high mana build. Now of course we're not rushing any old mana item out there, but getting something like a Frozen Heart and a Banshee's Veil, something like that are very solid tanky items that also have mana, itemize really well with Blitzcrank. It's just a really strong shield that procs when you're low, that gets better as you do gain mana. Now your bread and butter ability, your Q, Rocket Grab. Blitz fires his right hand in the target direction, pulling the first enemy hit to him, stunning them for 0.5 seconds, and dealing magic damage. And at that, it is pretty decent damage at between an 80 and 300 base plus 100% AP. So yeah, this is what makes Blitzcrank that strong support champion he is. Landing one single rocket grab in the late game on a squishy target that dies instantly from your team can win you the game alone. This skill also makes Blitzcrank one of the best level 1 invaders, as you can go invade through their jungle and as soon as you see somebody pop out, pull them with your rocket grab and hopefully your team will be there to follow up. It's a really solid ability that gains more damage as you level it and the cooldown goes down as well, so we make sure we max this ability first. Now let's look at that W, Overdrive. So, Blitzcrank puts himself into overdrive, gaining bonus attack speed for 5 seconds and bonus movement speed that decays to 10% over the duration. At max rank, this is up to a whopping 62% attack speed and 90% movement speed. When overdrive does end, Blitzcrank is slowed by 30% for 1.5 seconds. So your primary use for this ability is to gain some ability so you can run up and rocket grab somebody that doesn't have the mobility to run away. Now that's definitely the main way you use this ability, but in teamfights you can also pop this just for that bonus attack speed, so you do get out some extra autos. You're not going to be doing a lot of damage with those autos as a tanky Blitzcrank, but it's better than not doing it at all. When a high kill priority target tries to run away from that fight if they do start losing, you can activate this, chase them down, and pull them back. Now that last basic ability, your E, Power Fist. So when activated, Blitz's next basic attack within 5 seconds deals 100% AD bonus physical damage and knocks up his target for 1 second. So yeah, the main way you combo this ability is to use it with your Q. Pull a target with your Q and stun them for 0.5 seconds, then instantly combo with your E, Power Fist, to knock them up for an additional 1 second. If any of your teammates around you have some additional CC, they're then going to be able to combo this on top of yours, resulting in some rather easy kills. When you don't have your grab available, of course you can also pop Overdrive, run up to the target, and knock them up with your Power Fist anyways. Now let's look at the ultimate, Static Field. So for your passive, while Static Field is not on cooldown, Blitzcrank fires a lightning bolt at random nearby visible enemies every 2.5 seconds, dealing magic damage. For the active, Blitzcrank detonates his Static Field, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies and silencing them for 0.5 seconds. So the passive's pretty decent, but the downside is that it doesn't work when the ability's on cooldown. When you don't have to use the active though, it is pretty good as it will dish out some solid damage over the duration of the fight. That being said though, the active is really strong and should be used. I really like comboing this with my Q and E ability on a single target. Land your rocket grab, then pop them up in the air with your Power Fist, and use your activated Static Field to do a bunch of damage and silence them so they can't move away for 0.5 seconds. This is really strong in teamfights because if you do silence multiple targets, this can give your team a really big advantage. For our skill order, we always want to take our ultimate at 6, 11, and 16, and make sure we max our Q first. Now as you can see here, there is a pretty decent split of 39.5% of the people using the top build and 27.5% of people using the bottom build. Now I am somebody who would belong to the first group there, that does max E second. I prefer reducing the cooldown on my E as much as possible early on, so I am able to get up more Power Fists in early skirmishes and teamfights. Some people do prefer having the extra attack speed and movement speed from maxing their W second though, and that is completely fine. Both of these builds are really strong, and you can see that both are well above 50% win rate. Blitzcrank has great synergy with a lot of AD carries out there, but these are my 3 favorites. Jinx is great because whenever Blitz lands his rocket grab, she can follow up with her flame choppers to chain stun that target. She's then also able to slow a target with her zap, so Blitz can have an easier time running up to and rocket grabbing a target. Jinx can also deal some decent burst damage when she does have her ultimate to execute a target. So then there's Caitlyn, and she combos really well with Blitz, and it's pretty much just due to her Yordle snap trap. If Blitz can get off a rocket grab on a target and pop them up with his Power Fist, Caitlyn can simply drop one of these traps under the enemy and get off a really easy, high damage combo. Then there is Jhin, and Jhin is one of the strongest AD carries right now, and of course works really well with Blitz. He can use both his Deadly Flourish and his Captive Audience to chain CC with Blitz. Even better though is when he starts off a fight with Curtain Call, he does apply an 80% slow, and obviously landing a grab against something that has an 80% slow on it is pretty damn simple. In the early game, Blitzcrank is a very strong invader, so usually you want to try to invade as long as you have some decent level 1 champions. To invade, try taking a back route towards their bottom side jungle to find their jungler, and then make sure you pull them for your team to follow up. After you invade, you'll want to try rushing level 2 in that bottom lane. Your rocket grab on its own isn't that strong, but at level 2 when you combine it with your Power Fist, it becomes very deadly. When you are level 2+, try looking for a squishy target to pull, then knock them up with that Power Fist. Make sure you're warding early on with your trinket, and as soon as you have 800 gold, you'll want to pick up your Sightstone so you can keep up wards in the bottom lane. In the mid game, make sure you're keeping up those Sightstone wards and start clearing out the enemy wards with either Vision wards or an Oracle Alteration. If your AD carry is capable of being in a 1v1 or can survive in a 1v2, then you're usually going to want to look for quick roams to get other lanes snowballing by landing a rocket grab. However, make sure you don't neglect your AD carry because they're a very important part of your team and you don't want to leave them at a disadvantage in lane for a long duration. If your AD carry isn't good left alone at all, like it's a Kog'Maw or something, try and get down the bot lane tower as soon as you can and work with them to get down mid or top after to keep snowballing. In the late game, there's 2 different roles that you may need to fill. The first is looking for a pick so you can have an advantage in a 4v5, and the other is peeling for your AD carry if you have other initiators on your team. If your AD carry is fed and people are gunning for them, then you'll want to save your exhaust, rocket grab, and power fist to help peel for them. In a scenario where the enemy team has the bigger threat like a fed Katarina, then you're going to need to save your static field or rocket grab or power fist to stop her ultimate. Blitzcrank has the luxury of having multiple ways to stop channeled abilities. Now let's look at a couple hard support matchups. So first we have Zilean, and he's pretty annoying because whenever we come in to grab, he can stun combo us with his bombs. He's then also able to boost people with his time warp so they get a speed boost and they can't be grabbed, and if they do get caught, he can bring them back to life with his chrono shift. Then there is Leona, another really strong pick against Blitz. She's going to be able to stand in front of her AD carry because if she gets grabbed, it's not that big of a deal. If she does happen to get grabbed, she can engage onto your AD carry as she will be closer to it. If her AD carry does happen to get pulled, she can then engage onto the enemy and peel for her AD carry. And the last one I've listed here is Morgana, and it's because of her damn black shield. Whenever you are about to land a grab, she can simply toss her black shield onto the target to completely cancel the pull. She's a very solid pick against Blitzcrank if she does have an immobile AD carry that won't have an easy time dodging your grabs. Alright, let's finish this thing off with our item build, which starts with a relic shield, health potion, and warding totem. For our first buys, we'll want to get our sightstone as soon as we can so we can keep up those wards in the bottom lane, and then we want to clear vision with vision wards and a sweeping lens. For our core build, we want to get Face of the Mountain since it is our best gold generating item, and it does have a really solid shield. Then, eventually, we will upgrade our sightstone into a ruby sightstone, but I don't do this till later on in the game, and then of course we'll pick up a locket as it does have a really strong AoE shield. Now, you also have the option of picking up a tier, but this isn't something I do too often. It can make you less mana hungry, but the problem is it takes so incredibly long to stack on Blitzcrank, and the items it turns into, both the Manamune and the Archangel's Staff, are really mediocre on Blitzcrank. It is, however, something I see some Blitzcranks take early on, so it's definitely worth mentioning. But anyways, moving on to our boots, first we have the boots of mobility, which are usually my go-to as I do roam around a lot on Blitzcrank. Boots of Swiftness are also great for roaming, Merc Treads are great against a lot of CC, and Ninja Tabbies are decent as well against high AD teams. So for the item pool, my two favorite items here are the Frozen Heart and the Iceborne Gauntlet. Both give you a bunch of armor, making you decently tanky, and also have the mana that make your mana shield rather decent as well. If I'm looking to do a little bit more damage, I'll take the Iceborne, but otherwise, I take that Frozen Heart. For other armor alternatives, we have the Randuins like always if you do want to get a decent health pool at the same time, and there is Thornmail if you're against a full AD team. Zeke's Herald is decent as well, but I don't usually take it unless I do know I'm with a really solid AD carry. For our magic resist options, we first have the Banshee's Veil, a really solid item considering it does have a lot of mana and does block some CCs when we are going in for pulls. Mikhail's can then be a really solid pickup if there is a bunch of CCs on the enemy team and you do want to help your AD carry get out of them. We can then get a Righteous Glory for some added speed boost so we can get off a grab, or a ZZ Rot Portal if we want some split push instead. Then Guardian Angel like always, a great item in that late game when you do need to come back to life. So for our first example full build, we take our core, add a Frozen Heart, and a Banshee's Veil. This build will make us a very tanky frontliner, and we'll have a bunch of mana so when our passive shield does proc, it'll be pretty damn big. For the second example full build, it is one where we are against a lot more AP, so we did go for Merc Treads, then took that Banshee's Veil yet again, and added a Mikhail's at the end as well. Blitz is a tanky champion who itemizes really well, so just try to get some rather high cooldown reduction, and then get a lot of defensive stats based on the enemy team you're fighting. But that concludes our Blitzcrank guide. I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, you can always like, and if you are new here, you could also subscribe. If you are interested in Riot Point giveaways, then follow us on Twitter at egaming_TV, where we do them at the end of every month, and you can also visit our website, egamingtv.com, where we do a list of our champion guides. Thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next champion guide. Peace!